There is a particular kind of person the world quietly preys upon. Not the cruel person, not the indifferent one, but the kind one. The one who forgives quickly, who absorbs pain gracefully, who genuinely believes that patience and compassion will eventually soften even the hardest hearts around them. And yet, despite all of that goodness, perhaps even because of it, these people are consistently disrespected. Their boundaries are crossed. Their emotions are dismissed. Their time and energy are consumed by those who offer nothing in return. And still, they forgive. And still, they stay. Friedrich Nietzsche looked at this pattern in human relationships and saw something that most people are too uncomfortable to name. He saw that boundless forgiveness, without wisdom and without limit, does not make a person noble. It makes them invisible. It signals to the world, and more dangerously, to themselves, that they have no line that cannot be crossed, no wound deep enough to demand accountability. Nietzsche believed that the truest measure of a person's strength was not how much they could endure, but how fiercely they could defend their own worth. And there are certain violations, not accidents, not misunderstandings, but deliberate acts of disrespect that do not deserve forgiveness. They deserve distance. What follows is not a call to hardness. It is not an invitation to bitterness. It is something far more important. It is the recognition of 7 behaviors that, every time they are forgiven without consequence, quietly hollow out the person who tolerates them. The first is deliberate deception. Every human being makes mistakes, and some of those mistakes involve dishonesty. That is the nature of imperfect people navigating an imperfect world. But there is a profound difference between a person who lies out of fear and a person who lies knowing the lie will cause harm, and chooses it anyway. The latter is not a mistake. It is a declaration. It is one person saying to another, without words, that your ability to see the truth clearly does not matter to them. Nietzsche wrote that truth requires courage, that to commit to honesty, especially when dishonesty would be easier, is itself an act of strength. A person who deceives you deliberately is not simply failing. They are revealing that they do not believe you deserve the dignity of reality. And a person who continues to forgive that, without requiring change, eventually teaches themselves to expect less than the truth. The second is public humiliation. It often begins gently, a joke at your expense, a comment delivered with a smile, laughter that you are somehow expected to join in. And perhaps you do laugh, because the alternative feels like conflict, and conflict feels like weakness. But what actually happens in that moment is the opposite of what it appears. By laughing, by shrugging, by letting it pass, the person absorbing the humiliation is not being gracious. They are granting permission. Public mockery is never innocent. It is a social act of dominance, a quiet test of whether you will defend your own standing or surrender it to keep the peace. Nietzsche understood that a strong individual does not allow others to author the story of their worth. Respect begins not in how others treat you, but in how you respond when they treat you poorly. The third is the erosion of boundaries. Every relationship, whether built on love, friendship, or professional necessity, operates within a set of invisible agreements about what is acceptable. These agreements are called boundaries. And some people do not honor them. They encroach gradually, testing each time whether the line will hold. They demand time that was not offered. They enter spaces that were not open to them. They make decisions that belonged to someone else. Nietzsche believed that to live with genuine dignity, a person must create and enforce their own law, their own code of what they will and will not permit. A boundary that is never defended is not a boundary. It is simply an invitation that has not yet been accepted. The fourth is the weaponization of kindness. There are people in this world who look at generosity and see not something to be honored, but something to be harvested. They arrive when they need something. They disappear when they don't. They drain time, energy, and emotional resources with remarkable consistency. And when the moment comes that the giver needs something in return, they are suddenly unavailable, suddenly busy, suddenly elsewhere. Nietzsche was deeply critical of what he called the morality of the weak, a worldview in which certain individuals position their helplessness as a kind of moral claim on the strength of others. When someone values your presence only in proportion to what you can provide for them, that is not a relationship. It is an extraction. And continuing to give freely to someone who takes systematically is not generosity. It is a slow dismantling of your own resources. The fifth, and this is perhaps the most corrosive of all, precisely because it is the most normalized, is being treated as an option. Consider what this actually looks like. A person who contacts you only when boredom or necessity creates space for it. Who cancels without genuine apology. Who disappears for stretches of time and reappears expecting exactly the warmth they left behind, as though absence carries no cost. You become, in this dynamic, not a person they have chosen, but a fallback. A convenience held in reserve. And the reason this particular form of disrespect is so destructive is that it does not announce itself loudly. It arrives quietly, over time, in the accumulation of small moments where you were not chosen when you could have been. Nietzsche believed that every individual must construct their own value from the inside outward, that worth is not assigned by others but claimed by the self. And a person who has genuinely claimed their own worth does not wait in reserve for someone who cannot decide whether they matter. The sixth is the dismissal of emotional reality. A person attempts to articulate something painful, something that has genuinely affected them, and the response they receive is not understanding. It is correction. You are told you are overreacting. That it is not that serious. That you are too sensitive for the ordinary friction of human life. This is not disagreement. This is a specific psychological maneuver, whether conscious or not, that redirects the conversation away from the other person's accountability and toward the validity of your perception. Over time, a person subjected to this repeatedly begins to doubt themselves, begins to edit their feelings before expressing them, to preemptively diminish what they experience so as not to be corrected again. Nietzsche held that a person's emotions are not weakness, they are the living expression of their will, their experience, their particular encounter with existence. To have that diminished by someone who simply finds your feelings inconvenient is one of the quietest and most lasting forms of damage one person can inflict on another. The seventh is the betrayal of trust. Of all the things that can be taken from a person, trust is among the most difficult to rebuild, because trust is not simply a feeling. It is a structural element of how two people relate to each other, the invisible architecture that makes depth possible. When it is broken deliberately, not through error, not through weakness, but through a choice to place something else above the commitment made, it reveals a truth about that person's character that cannot be unseen. Nietzsche counted loyalty among the rarest and most essential qualities of a strong individual. Not loyalty as blind obedience, but loyalty as the active honoring of what one has promised. A person who breaks trust and faces no consequence has not simply escaped accountability. They have been taught, by the very person they betrayed, that the cost of betrayal is nothing. Here is what all seven of these have in common. None of them are accidents. Each one, in its own way, is a choice made by one person about how much they value the person standing before them. And every time that choice is met with immediate forgiveness, with a quick restoration of warmth, with a quiet burial of what happened, a message is sent. Not to the other person, to the self. The message is that this is acceptable, that you are willing to absorb this, that your dignity is negotiable. Nietzsche's philosophy returns, again and again, to a single axis, the question of whether a person lives according to their own deepest values or whether they have allowed the world to press them into a shape that serves everyone but themselves. Forgiveness, in its highest form, is a magnificent thing. The Stoics understood this too. Marcus Aurelius wrote of choosing not to be harmed even when wronged, of returning to equanimity not because nothing happened, but because inner peace was more valuable than prolonged suffering. But neither Nietzsche nor the Stoics confused forgiveness with the absence of standards. One can release anger without restoring access. One can wish someone no harm while removing them from proximity. One can be at peace within oneself and still, quietly and firmly, refuse to allow certain behavior to continue. The respect others extend toward a person is rarely random. It is, in most cases, a reflection, a mirror held up to the standards that person has demonstrated they will enforce. When a person begins to draw lines, when they stop absorbing what was never theirs to absorb, when they respond to disrespect not with punishment but with a simple and dignified act of withdrawal, something shifts. Not immediately, not dramatically, but it shifts. Some things do not deserve forgiveness. They deserve the clarity of distance. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a person can do, for themselves, and even for the other, is to stop pretending otherwise.